Grab bag episode, guys. Yay! Mailbag, grab bag, well check, whatever you want to call it. Okay, hey guys, welcome back to the Evergreen RX. I'm your host, Hayden, licensed mental health therapist, Cancer Moon, and the first to get deep at any party. And today's a grab bag episode. I think I'm gonna start calling these well checks though, or like wellness checks. I like well check better. And so basically it's where I just collect shorter, simpler questions from you guys about a given topic. So the topic of today is about making choices. Trusting yourself, making choices. So any question that kind of surrounded that, I'm going to be answering. I've got 5 little ones for us today, and I'm excited about it. I love these grab bag episodes because it's just like short and sweet. Just answer the questions as briefly as I can because we all know I can go deep on this stuff. So every now and then mix it up and just go a little bit more on the top. And if there's something I talk about that you want to know more about and want a whole ass episode about, then we can do that too, and you can let me know. But yeah, it's grab bag time. And before we get into all the questions, I just want to take like a moment here to just maybe you pause and think about what your relationship to making choices is. It seems increasingly like we all struggle with indecision, but maybe you have a different relationship to making choices or a different way that you've struggled with it or not struggled with it, which would be cool. So just kind of thinking about your own relationship as I approach these questions, because I think there's like a lot of inherent assumptions I make with especially the shorter questions on what somebody might be struggling with or what could be helpful to hear. But there's always like so much nuance to it. So thinking about your own specific relationship to this topic, I just think would be kind of interesting and maybe add even more color to these quick questions. And as always, you can text me your question at 512-655-9888 and, ask me whatever you want to know, whether it's quick, whether it's long, whether it's detailed or not. I'm happy to answer it and do my best in kind of sharing what I know. And you guys know the drill. If you want to read my disclaimer, it's at the bottom of this episode, but this is not therapy. This is not a replacement for therapy. This is, me sharing what I know as best as I can and hoping that it helps some of you guys out there and also helps us like find each other. That's another piece of this is if you resonate with these questions, like if you like the way I answer things, then maybe we can all start to find each other. All of us out there that are like really seeking an intentional life, especially those of us that are younger and maybe don't always see this way of living or thinking about the world reflected in our peer group. But there's a ton of us out there. So hopefully we can just like all start to connect and come together. Okay, so the first question of 5 is, how do I know if I'm making the right decision or just the most comfortable one? So maybe annoyingly, I first think, what do you mean making the right choice? What does that actually mean when we're talking about trying to make the right decision? Because sometimes the most comfortable decision might be the right one for you at a given time. Who says there's anything wrong with comfortable? Some people choose to live their whole life comfortably. That's not my personal choice, but what makes that wrong? If someone gets through life and enjoys themselves and is comfortable and safe and just kind of plays it low key, who's to say that's a bad life at all? So I think, just thinking a little bit like, what do we mean to be right? And I have learned a lot about the value of not pushing things. Sometimes I push myself to make a choice or to jump out of my comfort zone a little bit before I'm ready. And it's fine. It works out okay. But I think it causes more work for me in the long term. When maybe I just could have like sat on something a little bit longer or let things more naturally come up instead of trying to like aggressively push forward and always be challenging myself and taking that kind of path. Like maybe I could have just saved myself a little bit of like hardship if I just kind of sat back and waited for the time to really like arise or kind of slap me in the face because it was time to make a different choice or something. So that's just like a personal thing that I've learned that I think applies, but I will, refrain from going too far and just into the weeds and just leaving it at that. And I'd say that I think it's best to examine your motivation for a particular choice. I think that's a good way we can tap into if we're doing it from just a sense of comfort or what's familiar. So if it feels like leaning towards the more comfortable option is coming out of a strong place of fear, or maybe some narratives about yourself like, oh, well, I could go take this new job, but it's a level above what I've ever done. It's kind of a promotion, a step up. And because I've never done it, I don't know if I'm going to be good at it. So maybe I should just stay at this current job that I'm really good at and I know how to do. That could be an opportunity to say, let's see what I'm capable of. I think I might be more capable of what I'm giving myself credit for. So just examining the motivation behind making the more comfortable choice, because that type of motivation, that example I just gave, is so different than if you're, you're considering taking on this new role, this new job, and you're also like wanting to start a family. Might be better to go with the more comfortable option for now, because you're like expanding massively in this other way, and it could be a lot to do both at the same time. So totally different motivations for the exact same dilemma. So, talking it through with someone if you need to, and just figuring out where you're coming from. Like, I think of another example. If you were thinking about breaking up with someone, where is the desire sourcing from? Is it a need to push away? How do you feel when you're with them versus away from them? Like, do they make you feel good and you're happy with them, but there's this kind of internal drive or fire, like, oh, I'm getting too comfortable here. I'm feeling too safe, and I need to run from that. I need to not be complacent. That's something to kind of sit with longer. Or if you're noticing like, oh, this is a pattern of behavior, sometimes the thing that seems like the riskier choice can actually be the more comfortable one if it's the choice that we always make. So, food for thought. Okay, next question, next customer. What if I regret the thing I choose even if it felt right at the time? Full stop, period. If it felt right at the time and you regret it now, you got to grieve it. You've got to just grieve it and sit with it. Okay, you made a choice and you regret it because you didn't know then what you know now. That's life. That happens to all of us. It was right for you at the time. You want to honor that. Like, you did what you thought was best. And so taking time to just feel into that regret, and it sucks and it's hard and it is painful, but there's nothing else that you could have done differently. You thought you were doing what you needed to do in that time in your life. And so just letting yourself feel it, because berating yourself in hindsight isn't fair. It's not fair to you. And it's not going to help you grow or make different choices next time. If you're afraid, like, oh, I don't know if I can trust myself because I've made choices I regret in the past. Well, berating yourself is just going to make you more afraid of making choices. So I think you can take it and learn from it. It's important to learn from the regrets that we have. You can look at the conditions in which you made the choice. Did you make the choice rashly? Were there certain factors that were maybe being ignored or underplayed at the time? Or were there factors that were being overplayed at the time and overstated in your decision? You can put your analysis cap on it a little bit and think about where the choice came from, and maybe there are things that you could consider next time you're making a big decision. And also, just like, I'm sorry, it's really hard to make a choice that we regret. It's hard to not let that undermine our trust in ourselves, that we do make good decisions and that we can be thoughtful and intentional with what we do. So I am sorry, and I'm feeling for you if you can connect to this. So just extending that compassion and kindness, like, it is really hard to regret something, especially if it's like a really big choice and it kind of set us on a different path than maybe we want to be on now. But we always have a next choice point and an opportunity to do something different and kind of work our way into more of a decision or a life that we are wanting. So it's never too late, but I get it's hard to feel that way. Okay, next question. Okay, so this one is fun. It says, how do I stop asking everyone else for their opinion before I make a move? Oh my gosh. We all either are this person or know this person. That's like, I've got to consult everyone before I make a choice, and there's could be chronic indecision and panic even when asking them where they want to get dinner or whatever. I've definitely been in phases of my life where I'm like, I don't know and I don't want to have to pick. This can be rooted in a little bit of people-pleasing behaviors. My thought with this one is usually like therapy. Like, let's go to therapy. And I won't just say that because that's annoying, but I do think that because this chronic indecision can be and need for external validation for our choices can be rooted in so many different things that are usually more complex. Therapy can be a good place to start with this because, this has to do with developing a sense of self and a sense of self-trust. And maybe this has been wounded in the past, even like with that question from before. If you've made a choice that you like severely regretted, it could really have undermined your self-trust. And so now you seek out other people's approval to try to avoid doing that again. Or, maybe it hasn't been fully nurtured, this sense that we can make our own choices. Sometimes when we have more dominating parents that make a lot of our decisions growing up, we have an underdeveloped ability to make choices for ourselves. So we have to create environments in which that can be nurtured more. But there's also things like people pleasing or insecurity or generational self-doubt that can be embedded here. So maybe you come from like a long line of women that did not have the ability to really make a lot of their own choices. And so they kind of neglected really exploring what they want because what was the point? I mean, that's really fair. And we can carry that stuff from the generations before us. So it might run a little bit deeper than just you. But also with the people pleasing and the insecurity that can show up, we really want to address that at the root. And so I think exploring that in a therapeutic setting is really helpful. But if you want something a little bit more practical or, just of the moment, we can start small and simple and build from there. Just expanding your tolerance for making choices, for being decisive about something, for somebody maybe being a little bit disappointed or disagreeing with you. And I mean, small. You could be like riding in the car with your boyfriend and they want to listen to Bon Iver and you want to listen to Taylor Swift. Okay, this one's hitting close to home, and you just say, hey, would it be okay if we listen to this? I want to listen to that. And they maybe say, oh, I'd prefer this, but that's fine. Okay, let it be fine then. Let it be fine. Just make the choice. It's okay. They might not agree. Or even just like asserting yourself. Maybe they don't have any opinion on what you listen to and you just assert yourself and what you want and try that on for size. Or, saying where you want to go get dinner and just letting the first thing that came to your head be what you go with. And maybe it's awesome and you love it, or maybe it's just okay, but like expanding the tolerance for like it to be fine that you made a choice that you weren't absolutely obsessed with, or you didn't run all the options first, and just seeing like it's okay. And you can build that tolerance up over time. Next question. Is it normal to feel scared even when you know deep down it's the right path? Yeah, I'm going to say a big fat yes. I actually, when I was preparing for this episode, I wrote in all caps, yes. That it couldn't be more normal. Could not be more normal, I think. Sometimes feeling scared when making a choice can be a signal that maybe we want to think about it more, make a different choice. But this person says, when you know you're on the right path, okay, you know you're on the right path and you're scared. You're scared, but you do it anyway. Like it's so normal to feel that way. There's actually this idea with this one therapy model that I practice that there's certain like transformational affects that we can experience when we're expanding or having this moment of growth, or we've gone through this big like kind of emotional wave. There can be some like trepidation that comes out. You know, the example that's given is, if anybody is familiar with the psychological study that they did on babies, where I believe it was because they were studying attachment, but whatever, it's not relevant. Basically what it was is they put babies on a plexiglass that had like a photo of a cliff underneath it. So to the baby's perception, being on this glass above it, it looked like there was like this big drop off, and it's kind of scary. They're supposed to crawl across to their mom, their parent figure on the other side, and they get a little nervous. But then, you know, the mom is on the other side kind of coaxing them along and saying like, it's okay, you can do it, you can trust it. And that was used as an analogy for sometimes the transformation that can happen when we're like expanding and growing, where it's like we need a little bit either from someone else or from ourselves to say, hey, it's okay. Like, you're going to be fine. You can cross this. You can make this leap. And on the other side, it's going to feel good, but it's normal to feel a little bit scared when you're making this new big leap or doing something different. Usually just means we're breaking free. We're doing something new. We're not in our same old patterning, which is okay. Last customer before we close up shop. And they say, how can I rebuild trust with myself after years of people pleasing? So I want to do a whole episode on people pleasing. Send me your people pleasing questions or dilemmas. But just to answer this one in brief, because I have referred to this in the questions prior to this about, you know, that self-trust and being able to develop more of that trust, which I think is usually part and parcel with struggling to make choices or doubting our choices. So it's important to remember that people pleasing is a protective strategy. So your trust in yourself might not be as damaged as you think it is. It might just be more so that it's been covered up or obscured through the overriding necessity to people please because of that protective strategy place. So like a lot of times, those of us that will develop more of like a people pleasing behavior, we lean towards that protective strategy because it's more innate and aligned with the natural aptitudes and skills that we have. So you're always going to be someone most likely that cares a lot for people and notices how other people are doing and takes other people into consideration. That's not necessarily a bad thing. And that doesn't actually mean that it's undermining your own self-trust. That can be very true to you in the way that you make choices. However, making assumptions about what another person wants or needs or overextending ourselves to avoid disappointing others is a learned behavior. And it's a learned safety-seeking strategy. So that's the part that, yeah, like we can kind of go against our own best interest to preserve that safety strategy. But we can really start by remembering it's not you. You are not your strategies. That's kind of what I'm saying about like your trust might not be as ruptured as you think it is. It might just be more obscured. So when we remember that, it can help like not feeling like you have so much, you know, of a ladder to climb before you can really get to a place of trusting yourself, or feeling like you have so much to repair in terms of your own relationship. It's more just like a peeling back of a layer, peeling back of a blanket. Maybe you've been under this people-pleasing blanket for a long time, so you've made a lot of choices prioritizing that lens, prioritizing that behavior. But if you take off that lens, take off that blanket, and you don't use that as your number one priority in making a choice, the choices that are right for you may become much clearer, much faster than you think. And you're a lot stronger than you think, too. And so you can try out micro rebellions against people pleasing. I thought of this idea as like just little micro, like pushing back against that people pleasing part of you. Saying, it's kind of like the idea of like setting boundaries too, when we're first setting boundaries. And I have a whole episode about boundaries if you want, which I think can interweave really well with people pleasing. And I'll have that link below. But you can just start with those little micro boundaries and go from there. Micro rebellions, doing something just for you. It's the same with like not consulting people before every move that we make, which can also be a really big people pleasing behavior. Like if I consult with everybody, then they're all on board and I won't disappoint anybody with my choices. There are sometimes one and the same. It's the same with just starting small and building from there and not having to like jump in the deep end. And you might find that you actually have a lot more trust in yourself than you thought that you did. Okay, so that's it. There's the quick 5 questions about trusting yourself, making choices, navigating people pleasing. So there's a lot more good stuff that I could get into with all of these questions, which I probably will in the future. So go ahead and hit the follow so you can see when I post new episodes and as I continue to talk about this topic. And I hope this was helpful for you. I really do. Please let me know how all of it lands for you and what you think and what I missed. And I'll catch you guys next Wednesday.